I'm Amy.
And I'm Wes.
And we continuously cruise full-time on our 50-foot narrowboat.
In this video, we'll be taking you through the process of blacking your own narrowboat.
We wanted to make an easy-to-follow, detailed step-by-step guide on how to black your narrowboat yourself.
We hope it helps.
So the first thing you want to do is find a marina and get it booked. Often places do book up in advance, so it's worth trying to call as soon as possible. If you're a continuous cruiser, what we did is we just looked at our route around the time that we needed it done, and we just called multiple marinas around there to find the right one. A lot of marinas will have their own website with all the information on. Three main questions that you want to ask are you allowed to live on it while you get it blacked? Because some places you're not. If you are allowed to live on it, are you allowed to live on it with pets, if that's relevant? Because some places you can't. And then the third thing is, are they providing the paint or do you have to provide it yourself? Every marina is different, so it's always worth checking with them how they do it. So all the different marinas have different methods of getting the boats out of the water. Some use tractors on slipways, some use dry docks, but the one that we've chosen to go with uses a ring. The next thing you want to do is prepare the boat if needed. So we're just taking all of the loose things off of the roof, like my plant parts and stuff that's going to break if it falls. And also you want to make sure that you're just checking the inside for anything that might fall as well. We're just going by the basis of if we have a big knock, the things that usually fall off. We're going to take these jars off and I'm just going to put them on a tea towel in the sink. I'm also just going to tie the cupboard handles together. We're not going to do it on all of them, it's just that this one's got our pots and pans in. So you will need whatever paint you're using. We're using Ritex bitumen paint, gloves, paintbrushes. We've just got some really thick solid ones to get in there, and then a small one if we need it, and rollers.
Next step, get it out of the water.
This was the most nerve-wracking part by far, but don't worry, the marina should do everything for you. The next super important step is to get it jet washed. The marina should do this for you again, and it's just to get a layer of sediment and dirt off so that you're putting paint directly onto the boat.
Now we just need to wait for it to dry because the blacking paint won't stick to anything wet because it's water resistant. Top tip though, make sure you get your base plate done. Some people will say that you don't need it doing because it doesn't corrode or there's not oxygen that low in the water, but there is. As you can see, there's plenty of pitting on ours which hadn't been blacked on the bottom. So make sure you get it out high enough so that you can paint the base plate. It's also a good opportunity to check your anodes, which are basically the sacrificial bits of metal that will corrode and save your hull. So just give them a once over and just make sure that they're not completely withered away.
Make sure you're wearing clothes that you don't care if they get ruined. So the method we've been using for the base is we've been using a roller to cover the vast majority of it, and then we are using a brush to get right into the pits.
Base plate should only really need one coat. It shouldn't take quite as long if you don't have loads of pits. So the better condition the hole's in, the quicker it should be. Once your base plate's done, you just need to wait about half an hour for it to dry enough, and then you can lower it down and then get the rest done. In case you haven't noticed as well, a good tip would be to get goggles, because that was a close call. So if your boat has been lifted out onto high standing, the next stage is to lower it onto the lower standing, at which point you can live aboard again.
Before you put any paint on, you just want to use a wire brush to get any loose flakes of paint off, any rust or anything like that, just so the surface is prepped and ready to go.
You can also sand and prime the boat, but that's totally up to you.
Another thing to do to prepare before you paint it is take off your fenders. So the first thing we're going to do, because this is the bit that we kind of want to prioritise, is we are focusing on the water line. So I'm just putting a line all the way along the water line, and then also just round our holes. So this is our bathroom sink. Basically you want to go over an extra coat anywhere that's like a high traffic area for water, so the water line and these, just to give it that extra layer of protection. While you're living on it, if you are blacking it, you can also stick a tube in these just so that it doesn't trickle down, but we're just not going to use the sink for this bit. Now it's time to paint the bulk of the boat. So first thing, I'm just going in the cracks. This is like a little seam here, and I'm just making sure with a smaller brush that we have got right in the cracks. Same with down here in this crack. If you were on hard standing, make sure to get under and do the bits where the wood was sat.
And then once you've done all the cracks and crevices and seams, grab a roller and fill in the gaps.
Let's talk techniques and tips and tricks.
Make sure when you're painting your hull not to paint over your anodes. So if you cover them in blacking, they won't corrode. So leave them.
So if you've got any pitting on your hull, which are just tiny little dips in the steel from corrosion, you'll need to get like quite a thick brush, and then we've just been kind of going in circular motions along it and just kind of stabbing at it, just to make sure that the paint also goes in all of those little holes. And then make sure that you're swiping past, because that just makes sure that there's not like an air bubble of paint over the top and it hasn't actually gone in the hole. So we're calling it the glob and swipe. And then we're going to go over with the roller again to smooth it out for our final coat.
As well as areas like the waterline and outside the plugs, you also want to try and get any bits that have corroded a little bit more or scraped away through various bumps on your travels. When you get to this bit of your stern, you can paint all the way up to here, and you can paint your rudder, but you don't paint the propeller or the prop shaft, you just paint up to here. Basically all the steel, none of the movie bits around here. So one important thing that you have to do is make sure that you take your weed hatch out, because the inside of that also needs blacking. It's always worth just giving this a good brush and a scrape out before you do this. And an extra special tip is do this before you've painted down there, so then you won't get all the stuff that falls out the weed hatch sticking to your lovely new paint.
Because the paint is water resistant, it doesn't come off skin very easily, so you'll need white spirit to remove it, and always be safe.
And if it does rain, try not to worry too much, but just make sure that the boat's fully dry before you put any more paint on. Getting a thorough first coat on is really important. And then on all the subsequent days, you basically want to get as much paint on as you want. It depends on the weather, depends on how long you've got your boat out for. For us, we're going for about 3 coats, but some people do 5, 7, however much. The main things to consider are to consult the paint's drying times to make sure that you're leaving enough time between each coat. And then you also need to consider how long you have to leave it to fully dry before you go back in the water. And in our case, it's 24 hours.
And a reminder to make sure you're getting in all those pits.
Don't forget to do the extra coats on your weed hatch as well.
And then all the painting's done. Just have a little whip around, make sure you've covered everywhere. And if you've covered it all, make yourself a cup of tea, because you've earned it.
It's quite rare to have the opportunity to get the boat out of the water, so make sure you make a list of jobs that you can only do when it's dry. A common one is to sort all the rust around your gunnels, so we used a multi-tool, some Furtan and red oxide primer. And we also had our stuffing box repacked, as that's easier to do when it's out the water. When you're going back in the water, whatever you do, don't forget to put your weed hatch back in.
And then it's time to put the fenders back on and go back in the water. It's nerve-wracking going back in with all your new shiny paint, but it's got to happen sometime.
And finally, a breakdown of the costs. For us, the boat lift was £228 to go in and out, the jet wash was £3 per foot of boat, and we got through 3.5 tins of paint over the 3 days for £45 for each 5 litre tin, giving us a total of £558 for the whole thing.
Thank you so much for watching. Let us know down in the comments if you found this useful. Good luck with your blacking and make sure to subscribe for weekly vlogs.